From the very beginning of my life, there was never a lot of security there in any sense of the word, both in terms of housing, in terms of food, in terms of emotional and physical safety. It was extremely difficult to keep affordable housing, to keep food on the table, to keep utilities running. And I felt, I think, very constantly on alert, constantly worried about the next thing. You know, I had a mattress on the floor sometimes. I had, a room in a basement sometimes, and sometimes I didn't even have that. So it's a really complicated situation that would evolve on a monthly, daily, weekly kind of basis.
2,836 students have been identified in this county as experiencing homelessness. I believe, and the team believes here at HCEF, that number has actually increased.
High school students experiencing homelessness are more than 5 times more likely to be raped and sexually assaulted. They're more than 5 times more likely to experience dating violence. We've also found it, and unfortunately it's probably not surprising given the other victimization that they experience, that they're more than 4 times likely to attempt suicide. We also know that in the school building, students experiencing homelessness are less likely to graduate from high school. They're generally speaking more than twice as likely to be suspended or expelled from school. So the physical and mental health consequences and vulnerabilities are very, very real and very stark.
A lot of students who have instability in housing, like they're so worried about just basic needs being met that it's very hard for them to focus on school. Imagine if your basic needs aren't being met. Or like in order for your basic needs to be met, you've got to work. And some of our students work almost like full-time jobs to take care of their families, to make up the needs maybe that's missing because they're not living with a parent.
So many of our students, and there's research to support this, when they experience homelessness when they're younger, and then if they find permanent housing later in life, those impacts are still affecting them for many, many years. It's affecting them academically, mental health issues, physical health issues as well.
My mother was a city school teacher here in Pittsburgh for over 20 years. She had kids that would come to school that didn't have necessary items, toiletries, pens, pencils, books. They might not know where they're sleeping at night. Several of her kids, students, would go from house to house. And early on, she instilled in us that we are given a great opportunity to education. We have been given the chance to access all those things which aren't available to everyone else. When I agreed to begin participating with Homeless Children's Education Fund, I was completely unaware of the scope of the problem right here in Allegheny County. I believe that maybe it was a handful of people, stories my mother had told me about some struggles she had teaching in the city. When I found out that there are thousands of kids right now currently in Allegheny County that don't have access or might not have the ability to attend school, it's something you can't help but help.
We understand that a child who is experiencing housing instability is lacking the safety, the emotional security they need in order to learn. So we partner students with caring professionals to support them in every way, shape, or form.
Between the parents, the community, and the schools, they still can't do everything.
I had a really excellent student, and she had instability in housing. And when she told me that her family had to move and that they could no longer afford where they were living, and then she had multiple buses to get to school. And the reason why she was referred to me is because she was missing so much school and she was so late. She literally was suicidal. I called Chris. We got her and her sister set up with the program. We were able to get her connected to the counseling services. We were able to get her a bus pass because she's entitled to a bus pass. And it was just really a stress reliever for her. She was able to get her diploma.
I think one of the most difficult things, especially for homeless youth as they transition to college and career readiness, is the distinct feeling that they don't belong there. And I think people often forget about, little things that seem superfluous, that don't seem important. It does affect you because the more you feel like you don't belong, the less likely you are to ask for help getting there.
We are tag teaming this problem together. When I say, hey, to a student, this is Chris, this is Patience, I know that they're in good hands. I know that they're gonna be taken care of.
The team is in shelters, we're in schools, we're in parks, we're in libraries, we're anywhere and everywhere a student needs us to be in order to support them academically.
You know, I saw their ad and I remember thinking that it was for the scholarship program, the Hope Through Learning Award. I'd actually been admitted to Dartmouth College. I'd been admitted to several universities and I was kind of making my choices and I decided I wanted to go to Dartmouth, but I was running into this issue where I didn't know how I was going to get there. I got the Hope Through Learning Award. I was able to fund pretty much all of my moving expenses and everything I needed to get started in college, which is huge. I didn't realize just how helpful the Hope Through Learning Award had been until I'd actually already gotten to campus and realized that it gave me just enough financial security to make sure that I could get started in my college career on the right foot. And I think that award in particular is unbelievably important because most awards will write that check to your college. And when they write that check to your college, you're never gonna see any of that money. You're never gonna see it because they're gonna reduce your financial aid by that same proportion. So them writing that check to me gave me the flexibility I needed to pay for the things I needed to pay for as they came up, and to pay for my books and to pay for all of these other little expenses that no one really tells you about. Like, cause all you're thinking about is like, I can get there, I have room and I have board. So I have food and I have somewhere to sleep. Anything else you think I can figure that out when I get there.
A lot of our youth we've been working with for over a decade. We've known them since they were in high school and now they're adults and have their own lives and their own families and careers. So it's really an amazing opportunity for us to be able to walk with them throughout that journey. And the fact that they want to do that with us is really humbling and it's quite an honor, as I said. One student I'm thinking of right now, a scholar that I presented with just a couple of days ago, and she did very well in high school, got into college, was going to college, and then as she puts it, life happened. This particular scholar was in an unhealthy relationship. She ended up having to drop out of college. Through her strength of will, was able to get out of that relationship. We obviously were with her throughout the whole process. Some time went by. She was able to find different housing, stable housing on her own, and she's back in school now. And she's just so happy to be there. She's doing well. I think she's really proud of herself for what she's accomplished. We're really proud of her for what she's accomplished. So I think that speaks to the importance of ongoing support and that sort of family-like relationship and, you know, being with people unconditionally, recognizing that they're going through what they're going through. And, you know, you just have to try to offer them whatever support you can and whatever support they want to ask for at that particular moment.
One of the things that attracted me the most to Homeless Children's Education Fund is the donations and the funds really go directly to the communities and the people that are in need. The money is spent for programs, the money is spent for personnel, the money is spent on things that will directly impact the students' lives and provide them with access to education and support tools through HCEF and our generous donors.
With HCEF, I have seen over many years that when I say, hey, this student needs you guys, I can rely on them to take care of so many things. Even the things that are not maybe in their wheelhouse, they still work on to help the student.
If a child needs to speak with a mental health counselor, we make that happen. If a child needs to go to an extended stay hotel, we make that happen. If a child needs a prom dress, we make that happen. So we try to level the playing field. We try to create as much balance in that child's life as possible, because you can't get to education if you're not meeting their basic human needs.
Lots of people, I think, like to think that they could never be homeless, that it could never happen to them. And I think that's kind of a way that people protect themselves from having to think about the reality, which is, for most Americans, it can happen to you. It absolutely can. You know, you lose your job, you get sick, something, you know, goes awry, and all of a sudden, you might find yourself in this same position. So without the Hope Through Learning Award, I wonder if I would have graduated from college. I wonder if I would have been able to provide the kind of opportunities and resources to others that I can provide now.
I don't view HCEF as a charity. I view it as a chance. It's a chance to give someone an opportunity to make the most of themselves. Several of our recipients have shown perseverance and toughness that I can't even hope to match. And they're only doing it because we give them the opportunity.
We launched the You Can campaign simultaneous to Homeless Children's Awareness Month. And what is You Can? First, the words you can. They're jarring. They say, what can I be? What can I do? You can inspire, you can ignite, you can support, you can celebrate, you can be what these students need you to be. So give wherever is comfortable to you, whether that's money, whether that's time, whether that's advocacy. Give wherever you can.
All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Kelly Sasso, and I'm coming to you here at the WTAE Channel 4 studios. And I'm really honored to be a part of this virtual roundtable today, talking about the issue of homelessness and housing instability among children, especially as it relates to their education. And I was fortunate enough to come across this organization in a really exciting way that we're going to be able to share with you and all of America in less than a week now. Next Wednesday, I just got clearance to share the news publicly that Homeless Children's Education Fund is going to be featured on the Kelly Clarkson Show. I had a chance to go out with your executive director, AJ Jefferson, out to Los Angeles and go on the show to share the awesome work that Homeless Children's Education Fund is doing. And even though I told you that, there is still reason to tune in. There was a really exciting surprise that happened at the end of our visit. So make sure you guys tune in. That's going to be on next Wednesday, November 2nd at 3 p.m. here on WTAE. But today, as we have this roundtable here to mark Homeless Children's Awareness Month, we just want to share a little bit more about the mission, which is why they asked me to come and moderate this roundtable, which I'm excited to do. So I'm going to announce here our special guests who will be talking today. We have Kate Nyquist, the Director of Educational Services for HCEF, Alize Strickland, the Family Engagement Coordinator. We have Patience Baker on the call as well, Teen Program Manager, and Brian Knight, the Community Engagement Manager. So I think a really good place to start here is just to kind of paint a picture as to what homelessness looks like with children in our region specifically. That video did a really nice job kind of outlining some of the personal stories, but I also want to bring in Kate to talk a little bit more about that, and also just to kind of help paint the picture for you as far as the work of Homeless Children's Education Fund. So Caitlin, take it away.
Thanks, Kelly. I'm Kate, as Kelly said, and the Homeless Children's Education Fund has been around for over 20 years now, supporting that over 2,000 youth experiencing homelessness in Allegheny County. And I've had the privilege and honor to be able to get to know the names and the faces behind those numbers and those stats. So working closely with the team, we get to see how homelessness and housing instability impacts the lives of children and families all throughout Allegheny County. So we get to know students who are living in shelters and working closely with our shelter partners to support them through after-school programming and hands-on activities through our enrichment programs, bringing fun and joy to students every day. And we get to know students through our teen outreach program and our school partners, and getting to know what it means for students like Michael described, who may not know where they're going to be spending the night, and taking that time to get to know what their unique needs are and match them up to the services that we have available. So anything from children who are very young all the way up to age 24, we're working to make sure that we meet them with programming and services and kind people with good hearts to make sure they're getting that personalized, individualized touch.
And Caitlin also was in LA. She was the emotional support for AJ. And so it was really nice to get to meet you, Caitlin. Something that the three of us talked a lot about when we were out there was maybe the lack of awareness about this issue, because a lot of times people, if you pass a homeless camp, let's say, you don't necessarily see a lot of kids. So people don't think this is a big issue for kids. But if you could just kind of explain why it is and why we don't see them in that traditional homeless setting.
Absolutely. So for kids in particular, that's just about 1% of the people that are experiencing homelessness as young children and young adults, so that are unsheltered. So the majority of families who are experiencing homelessness are doubled up, staying with a friend or a relative, We have a couple of students who are staying with an aunt or an uncle, or they might switch between an aunt and uncle and a grandparent's house. And then we have a lot of teens and young adults who are, staying with friends or just couch surfing. So all those things, and including shelters as well. So about 30% are staying in shelters and about 70% are in other living situations. But there are also a few children and families who are staying in cars or hotels or motels. But yeah, a lot of that is unseen, and most people aren't aware because it's not what we think of, like you said, Kelly, every day when we're thinking about students experiencing homelessness and people experiencing homelessness in general.
And for these kids who are, where does that put education? I would just sort of assume that pushes it to the back burner when you're not even sure you have a place to sleep that night or a meal to eat. Is that kind of the big problem that you're seeing?
Absolutely. So when you don't have your basic needs met, when you don't have a place to lay your head, when you don't have food to eat at night, it's really hard to focus on the things that are happening during the day. And sometimes school can be that place of stability, and that's a great place for us to get connected to students. So even despite some of the challenges, school is still a priority, but it makes, once you get there, even hard, to be able to focus, to be able to have a place to do your homework when you come home. Those things make learning a challenge, but that doesn't mean that the families that we work with aren't trying their best. But the anxiety, the stress, just the pressures of everyday life, as you're facing those housing instability circumstances, make that a really big challenge. Yeah.
And Alize, I want to bring you in to talk a little bit about the K-8 population. Talk about the programs you guys offer for after school, some of the mobile learning and the family engagement that HCEF is working towards to help that group of younger students.
Sure, absolutely. So specifically, when we are working with our shelter partners, we offer, there's a learning center in those shelters. So we offer after school programming for those students. Snack is involved, and education piece and socialization, which is, a big key too, is all included in those things. Social emotional skills, all those important things are pieces that are added into it. So those are the kind of services that we offer in the shelter. And then now in the community is our mobile learning program, where we meet students where they are in person, whether it could be a library, a park, doubling up in a motel, or with an aunt, uncle, or grandparent, wherever we can meet them to make that a little bit easier on them, we try and do that as best as we can. And there we also provide, individualized support, social emotional support, resources, referrals, all of those things, because that engagement with the families is also key. Working with the students is huge, but making sure that we're engaging with the families and we're meeting their needs and getting them connected to services to help support their child is a huge part of what mobile learning definitely does.
And what are some of the biggest challenges for those families, specifically as it relates to the K-8 population?
I would say definitely housing and transportation. That those are huge issues as they're bouncing around and going between different homes and couch surfing with different other family members. That often takes them out of their comfort zone, their environment that they're so used to being in, and that transportation could be definitely a barrier for most of our families, especially getting to school. And then, a lot of their after school programs offered in different schools, but it's hard when, the students aren't able to make it there. We try and do our best to help fill those gaps as much as we can, but I would definitely say transportation and then housing as well. There's a lot of places and, shelters are being filled up that a lot of families, that doesn't leave them a lot of options to try and find a safe place in, comfortable space for them to lay their heads with their child. So those are definitely the two barriers that we see working with our families.
And before we get any further into the organization, we got our first question on the Q&A, which is, how can I donate? Obviously, the work that you guys do takes money. And as AJ was kind of filling me in on, the goal is to help more. I think right now HCEF is handling somewhere around 500 students in Allegheny County. But as we mentioned in the video, there's well over 2,000 that have been identified as having housing instability in the county, which, leaves a lot more room to grow. So I don't know who wants to take this one. Brian, Patience, Caitlin, but how can people donate to help?
Well, you can text "you can" to 26989. You can also go to our website. It's homelessfund.org. And just like Kelly said, that's going to help us be able to reach more students and families.
All right, we'll keep popping that reminder up too. Patience, I want to talk to you a little bit about the teen high school referrals and some of the services that you offer to teenagers and people maybe getting ready to apply for college.
Oh, perfect. So what we do is we are directly in the schools. We offer direct supports within our schools. We come in and we first and foremost address those immediate needs. Once we can cover immediate needs, we go on to college and career planning with our teens and our young adults. And it looks different for every teen and young adult. It's individualized to their goals and their aspirations. And then we also support with our Hope Through Learning Award. It is a $2,500 scholarship to teens looking to pursue post-secondary education. I'm sorry about that. I'm directly in a school today, so you may hear the bells go. But it is $2,500 direct funding to that child, to that student, to address any educational barrier so that they can pursue post-secondary education.
And something that AJ and I know talked a lot about is kind of the why, the big mission of your organization. And she was explaining it to me that one of the best ways to break the cycle of poverty is through education, which is why this work is so important and your donations will go so far, is because it can really make a difference in these young people's lives. Brian, we haven't heard from you yet. If you want to kind of chime in a little bit about that kind of concept of breaking the cycle, I think that'd be helpful for folks tuning in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I usually refer back to are just some statistics that I think tell the story really well. So if you're, and these were alluded to in the video a bit to begin with, but if you experience homelessness as a student in your K-12 education, you are 87% more likely than the general student population to drop out. So to not achieve your high school diploma on time. And then if you do not achieve your high school diploma, you are over 3 times more likely to experience homelessness as a young adult. You know, getting that degree, you know, that high school degree is required by, you know, so many jobs now. And in fact, I think it's something like 2/3 of current jobs require education beyond high school. And that's something that we're working on a ton, you know, in our teen program is that goal planning. We're trying to get people to high school graduation and then make sure that they have a plan beyond it. So whether that's planning for a career, some sort of training, or some sort of university, we're supporting students throughout that planning process and then beyond as they actually try to achieve their goals as well. But yeah, you have to get the education to really to get out of those things. And I think it's really important to remember that there's a direct line between homelessness as a child and homelessness as a young adult, and that these things are cyclical. Yeah, as you said.
As the community engagement manager, what exactly is your role? Are you helping to identify some of these students and talk to the families about bringing them in the program?
As a pretty small staff, I think that's it's a complex question. We have so I think we're all doing a lot of stuff. One of my major roles is systemic advocacy, is being out in the community in different community groups. So, you know, working with the County Department of Human Services, looking at how different systems between the education system, the housing and homelessness systems are working together, and trying to just find ways that they could that things could go more smoothly, that things could be better for the families that we're working with. So that's one role that I have. And then another major role that I have is volunteer recruitment, is, you know, finding ways to connect people in the community who want to help and have time to do so with opportunities to make an impact on the students that we're working with. So we have, you know, volunteers who help out in our after-school programs every day, volunteers who go out and help Alize and Lauren in the mobile tutoring sessions, who are making, you know, home visits to families. We have volunteers who are making deliveries of, you know, backpacks and school supplies to families that are enrolled in our programs. And we have volunteers who are helping us with fundraising and event planning and all the sort of like behind the scenes logistics that make our work possible. And I'd love, you know, I'm always open to talking to new people about it. So if anybody is watching and interested, shoot me an email. That's how we get started.
Well, we definitely have some interested folks watching because we're getting some questions in. So just a reminder to anyone who is watching, if you do have a question, use the Q&A feature instead of the chat. That way we can all kind of see your questions. So we got one from Becky that says, what staff do you typically work with at a high school in order to identify and assist these unhoused students? Is it guidance counselors, principals, and how does the connection begin? And how can others like myself help facilitate these connections in local districts? So whoever thinks they might maybe be the best to answer that, Caitlin, maybe that's you. Feel free to take it away.
Sure thing. I'd be happy to answer that. And then Patient Center, Alize or Brian, you can fill in if I forget something. But we have a really great relationship with the school counselors and guidance counselors and social workers at the schools that we are partnered with, which we've started out with just a handful and we're growing that. We grew that this year to add 3 more and other districts outside of Pittsburgh Public Schools, which is like one of our major areas of focus. But we're looking to continue to grow and expand as we grow and expand our team. As Kelly said before, we know there are so many more students that we want to continue to work with. So I'd be happy to talk more with anyone who wants to talk about what that looks like in their district or in their neighborhood school. And I'll let Brian talk about some training opportunities too, because that's another way that we help make sure all the personnel in the building are informed about helping students experiencing homelessness.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Kate. So we also offer professional development for full school buildings. So everybody who works in a school is who the training is for, whether it's teachers, paraprofessional staff, school nurses, administration, and what the training is on is the McKinney-Vento Act and student homelessness generally. So, you know, what students what students are considered homeless by the education system and how and what rights they have, and then we talk about how teachers and all of the different people in those buildings can come together as a group to create, you know, good systems and good policies to work with students. And you know, those trainings usually require more like, you know, we have to talk to principals and superintendents and people who are determining professional developments and things like that for the school. So yeah, in terms of those trainings and then trying to help schools institute good policies, we have some relationships with school boards and school administration as it's necessary and as it makes sense.
All right, thank you, Brian. And just once again, I want to throw out a reminder for anyone maybe that's just tuning in to support the Homeless Children's Education Fund. They made it really easy. You don't even need to really dial a phone number. You can just text the words "you can," so one word, YOUCAN, to the number 26989 with any monetary donations. Brian, I know you mentioned McKinney-Vento here just a few minutes ago. We had a question from Lauren come in. What are the various ways that you work with our schools to help support McKinney-Vento students? And maybe a good place to start with that would be explaining what that is for anyone that's unfamiliar.
Sure. So the McKinney-Vento Act is a piece of federal legislation that defines homelessness for the entire education system throughout all of the United States. And it defines homelessness as lacking a regular, fixed, and adequate nighttime residence. So that includes folks who are you know, sleeping outside, staying in cars, staying in the emergency shelter system, as well as folks who might be doubling up with friends or relatives. So just staying temporarily with somebody else due to some sort of displacement, whether that's an eviction, fleeing domestic violence, anything that leads to them, anything that is, you know, involves them leaving their home when they didn't want to, could be the triggering event. It also includes teenagers who might be couch surfing, bouncing around from place to place. All those situations are unstable, and all of them, affect school outcomes pretty significantly. I think that's a really important starting place because a lot of people tend to think of homelessness as being outside on the streets. And that's not what it looks like for us, and that's not what it looks like for students. So that's who it covers. And then it provides some key rights and protections. The main one is transportation. So when you lose your housing, typically, or a lot of times, you end up in a new school district. You have a right, when you lose your housing, to transportation back to your original school district to avoid any gaps in your education. So gaps in attendance and discontinuity between different school systems, because you tend to fall behind, lose a lot of time every time you move. And then it also, for folks who that isn't an option, because sometimes, you end up really far away, like an hour commute, you have a right to immediate enrollment in the new school district that you find yourself in. So those are the main provisions of McKinney-Vento. You also have a right to, some preschool meals and some fee waivers and things like that. But those are the main things that the McKinney-Vento provides.
And I know in addition to all of the educational services that HCEF provides, there's also just a lot of support for the families from what I've been gathering. Patience, I'm going to direct this one to you. Can you talk a little bit about the mental health support that you and this group offer to some of the students, especially as you're in a school joining us today?
Perfect. So the Teen Outreach Program consists of myself and my colleague, Chris McEnany. And we are both facilitators of dialectical behavior therapy. For short, it is DBT. And we're not therapists, we facilitate the curriculum, which is based in social and emotional skills. And it is surrounded around 4 principles, which is mindfulness, how can teens stay in the present moment? And it is centered around distress tolerance, how much you can handle the stresses of life and the stresses of situations that they're put in at young ages, as well as emotion regulation, dealing with their emotions in that teenage age range, and then interpersonal effectiveness, building healthy relationships that can go on to establish their careers, their jobs, their education. We do that work. We offer that in after-school settings, and we also offer that in a local high school currently.
That's wonderful and very important too. Guys, we just got another question in our Q&A chat. So thank you very much to Kessa, who wrote in, what are some of the roles I can fulfill as a volunteer at HCEF? I'm interested in helping, but what does your organization need the most? Caitlin, you want to take that one?
That might be more. That might be more my alley.
Feel free. Yes.
So we have right now. I'm recruiting for some of our direct service K-8 programs. Like I mentioned, our after school program and our mobile tutoring program are 2 of the big direct service areas that we need help in right now. So those volunteers for the after school program, they're going to dedicate 1 afternoon per week to come into one of our shelter programs to help one of our after school instructors basically just carry out the lessons with the kids. They're going to help kids with homework. They're going to make sure that, like, as we transition between activities, we keep the attention on what we're doing, and generally just like model good student behavior. A lot of times our volunteers are sort of acting as the way I like to put it is big students. You're doing some of the same activities that kids are doing. You're journaling alongside them, giving them ideas about what to write about. You're drawing your own, your picture, doing your own creative projects to show them that, like, learning can be really fun and exciting. And then for the mobile program, it looks a bit similar, but it's folks going out to some of those home visits with our instructors. We'll pair you with an instructor and with a family. And you'll go out once a week for about 1 hour to 2 hours, depending on the size of the family, how many students are in there. And you'll work on, whatever the student and the family have identified as like the target areas that they're trying to develop. We're very strengths-based in the programming and with our volunteers. So, we're focusing on what students do know and trying to build on that to get them where they want to be. That's most of the direct service volunteering for our programs. And then we also have some needs in like on the administrative and fundraising side of things. So we can use help with event planning. We can use volunteers who are interested in like, throwing their own like fundraising, forget what they're called, like those front porch parties. That's what they were in COVID. So things like that are the biggest needs. We also have an outreach team who focuses on community outreach, helping with some of that community education around, student homelessness generally, spreading the word about what HCEF is doing, and also, event logistics, promoting HCEF events and fundraising opportunities amongst their networks, that sort of thing.
So a lot of opportunities, basically,
Yeah,
depending on what your different skill sets are, and some really good ways to help. Another way you can help is financially, as we've been mentioning. If you'd like to support Homeless Children's Education Fund, this really amazing program here, you just text the word "you can," so one word, YOUCAN, to 26989. 26989. That's a way to help financially, or Brian just went through a lot of the volunteer opportunities. Alize, I'll ask you this question. Do you find it to be a challenge to to identify some of these students who are dealing with housing instability? Are their families always very open to coming to you and sharing their story, or is that a challenge sometimes?
No, it definitely is a huge challenge. I think because I started with HCEF in the midst of COVID. So it was very difficult for schools to identify students experiencing homelessness. And that was primarily because the way that they help identified was through their attendance and transportation, so getting to school. But when those things weren't happening because it was virtual learning, then there were a lot of kids that happened to be missed over because of that. And so, now that we're back in the schools and, we're there in person, I think that's where we start to really step in and being a part of those schools to help identify, those students. And those are why it's so important for those trainings that Brian does, is to help it, identify, those students in the schools. But I think it's really important that whenever I do get connected with families, it's about building that trusting relationship. I go in with that engagement piece and I don't ask those tough questions right away. Those are things that come up as I start to build a relationship with them, and they come through naturally. And it's because, a lot of things, I don't ever want to go into, a family's home and re-trigger maybe some traumatic moments that might have happened. So those are things that come in through conversation, through building that good relationship, through those home visits that I do during our tutoring sessions, and with our schools as well. I think a lot of the schools that we work with, they talk to the families first, and then they pass that information along with us with the permission of that, that parent or that caregiver. So that's why it's so important and vital to have that relationship with both the school and the parent. And then it just kind of comes naturally. To kind of help them then make sure that we meet those needs as well, whether it's housing support or helping with, food or groceries and gift card support, or help with transportation. And that's where a lot of those big pieces come out in those conversations.
And I'd piggyback off of that a bit to just add, we do a lot of systemic advocacy and community outreach to try to let people know about their rights under McKinney-Vento, and let them know, a lot of families' identification has been down and underreported for as long as they've been reporting the numbers. For the 2019 school year, there's data that suggests that Pennsylvania was only identifying about 2 out of every 9 high school students who are experiencing homelessness. And we've taken that very seriously and have been trying to address it systemically. And so that's why we've developed these professional developments for teachers, so that, classroom teachers who really get to know families, really get to know students individually. A lot of times they hear a lot of stuff that's going on at home, and they pick up on things that maybe like a social worker who's got 500 kids on their roll might not have as much opportunity to, because they're not seeing them every day. So those trainings are really to get everybody in the school involved in the process of identifying students and connecting them to resources. So that's one piece that we do. And then we also do some community education. So we go out and table at back to school events, give out free books and some flyers to let people know, like, here's what happens, or here's what you're entitled to, should you ever lose your housing, so that people are prepared. Because a huge reason that identification is so underreported is that there's a lot of stigma around homelessness, and families might not know what the technical education definition is, and so they don't tell anybody because they don't know they're entitled to services. So we try to make sure that people do know that, both on the education, on the school side, as well as the community side. We also offer those trainings to out of school time agencies and other community groups like the city parks department, to make sure that they're aware and can also advocate for students and families as well, so that we have that good systemic connections across the board.
It just struck me as you were sitting there, talking about all of these services and programs offered, that maybe we should have said this a little closer to the top, is that all of this effort that you guys are putting in is actually working. It is moving the needle. Caitlin, I'll kind of direct this to you to speak about, in your organization's decade plus of work, how have you seen outcomes positively change for these kids that you're working with?
We're seeing students graduate, which is a huge predictor of future success, future opportunity for work, future opportunity to decrease the likelihood that they'll experience homelessness again. That is a big piece of what we do. And our teen outreach program staff help really make sure that they're meeting students where they are, whether it's helping with financial aid support, whether it's helping figure out what credits they need left, or whether it's figuring out how to make sure the school is on the same page with them as far as what has happened these past 4 years in their high school career. And then for our younger students, it looks like learning the letters of the alphabet. It looks like learning how to write your name. It looks like learning how to read. We have a student who, when we first started working with them in the midst of the pandemic, knew just a handful of letters, wasn't too strong in writing his name, and definitely wasn't there yet with reading out loud. He's reading out loud now stories about Pete the Cat and all of his favorite characters, and that smile and that joy that you see in his excitement of wanting to read that book each time we work with him, that's the success for our youngest students. But yeah, those high school students, it's graduating with that diploma and being able to walk out there and have your own cap and gown. That's another thing that we help make sure students have. It's all those little things that help you feel like a kid, feel like a student, and feel like you belong, because there's all these experiences we've talked about where you don't feel that sense of belonging. And HCEF is just a little part of helping to celebrate the success of those students and really shine a light on how great they are, and giving them a chance to, feel a little bit normal.
Mm-hmm. And it wasn't, just our station and some of the other local stations here really recognizing your work, as we kind of mentioned off the top for anyone who wasn't with us. My connection here as a news anchor at the ABC station here in Pittsburgh, WTAE, to Homeless Children's Education Fund actually came through the Kelly Clarkson show, because WTAE kind of pitched this idea to the Kelly Clarkson show. They were asking all of their affiliate stations, the stations that carry Kelly's show, to look for a really good organization in their community for this Good Neighbor series that she's been putting together. And when we looked at the work that you did, we thought it was awesome, shared it with their folks, and they agreed. Homelessness, is a big passion of Kelly Clarkson's, as we learned when we were out there. And she was very much moved by your story. And there is a little surprise at the end after that story. So that's going to air next Wednesday, the 2nd at 3 p.m. on the Kelly Clarkson show here in WTAE. And I think really the most exciting part about that is just the way that other people will now see your organization and maybe I would think the goal would be to maybe mimic this in other cities as well, and kind of piggyback on your success and help other students, because as we know, this is obviously not just a problem here in Pittsburgh or even just Allegheny County, so I really think big things are coming for your organization, which is so exciting. It was very exciting for me to kind of, meet all you guys and learn more about this. So we only have like 15 minutes left that we slated for this. I think maybe a good way to do this is to kind of wrap up. And if anyone has any questions and you're watching on the live stream, please feel free to send those in through the Q&A. You can also financially support HCEF by just texting the word YOUCAN, one word, YOUCAN, to 26989. And I would like to go through with all of you. Patience, I'll start with you since you probably need to jet out of here the quickest since you're already in a school. Just kind of giving your final thoughts and anything that you think we didn't talk about so far in this Q&A as it relates to the specific work that you do that you'd like to share with folks.
Yes, I'm glad you gave me that opportunity because I wanted to highlight a teen summer program that we piloted last year. It is called our Teen CEO program, and CEO stands for Career Exploration Opportunities. We truly believe that we work with bright, amazing young individuals who only need opportunities. And through our CEO program, we present them with work experience coupled with workforce development curriculum. And I would be happy to talk to anybody, any local businesses where we can pair our teams up to and just provide those opportunities.
Very nice. All right, Patience, thank you very much. And it's been very exciting to see your enthusiasm about this. It's just infectious. Alize, do you want to put any closing remarks in here?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I am just super proud of my favorite program with the mobile learning program. I work very close with Kate. When I first joined, even as an intern, actually, my background, the mobile learning program was literally just an idea on paper. It was something that Kate and I dreamed up that we really wanted to incorporate in HCEF. And this is our second year. We piloted last summer going in, and this is our second year now. And I think it's just so vital to not only meet families just where they are, but to be in their homes or wherever they are and they feel comfortable. I think, that the whole home visit piece is just super vital because we get to be in their environment and we really get to understand them a little bit more wherever they're staying. And for them to open that up to us as well is huge. And that's where that trust is very vital. So being a part of their space and getting to see a piece of what their lives are like every day makes us, very passionate about what we do. And we just sympathize with them. And it makes this program just very unique because, again, we get to meet families where they are, no matter, any barrier on our end. We like I said, we've met in parks, motels, on uncles' houses, grandparents, and oftentimes location will change. And we're very flexible on that too. So I think, I'm super proud of this program and the team that we've been able to grow with it. And it's going to keep continuing to grow in a very positive way. So that's like a big piece of what I'm really proud of to be a part of HCEF.
Rightfully so. I agree. Okay. Brian, anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things to remember is that it takes a lot. It takes a community to address these issues. It really takes support and everybody working together towards common goals to move the needle on this stuff. And we partner with a ton of really great organizations who help us do the work that we do, and we're extremely grateful to all of them. And to all of the supporters through volunteers and donors that make our work possible. And yeah, I just encourage anybody watching to think about the ways that you can contribute, because there are tons of them. And from giving your time to making connections to between organizations, and also thinking about the ways that we think and speak about people who are going through these experiences. And I think that one of the most important things that we can do is to remember that it is an experience, that homelessness is a condition and not an identity. It's not something that has to stay with you if you're being supported and uplifted by the community around you. Yeah, I think it's so important to remember, and I think that it's a lot of people forget or don't know or don't think about it that way, and yeah, that's all I got.
No, I'm really glad you brought that up, especially because we saw some of the, kind of graduates of your program, like Michael in that video at the very beginning, who's just had so much success. And that just kind of proved that he really did move beyond those circumstances, but is still looking back and thanking you guys for your work and hopefully helping others too. All right, Caitlin, we'll give you kind of the last word here if you'd like, unless we have any, oh wait, we might have one more question. Oh, they just said, Colleen said, thank you for the presentation. Glad to know more about your organization. That's good. We're glad you tuned in. Caitlin, if you want to go ahead and take the final word here.
Yeah, I will absolutely just first say thank you for tuning into this and for giving us a little bit of your lunch hour so that we can get to know, so that you can get to know a little bit more about our organization and about the students and families that we work with and how amazing they are and how I wish that our programs didn't need to grow. But until that happens and our programs aren't needed any longer, you can support us and make sure that we can continue to reach even more students so that we can get to know all those faces and names behind those over 2,000 students experiencing homelessness.
Yes. And as we mentioned, and I'll say it one more time, financial support for HCEF is very easy. You can just text it, the word YOUCAN, YOUCAN, one word, to 26989. You can also visit their website to learn more about their program and the educational opportunities that they offer to these kids, which can truly be life-changing, as we've heard, once they get an education, finally breaking that cycle of poverty that they are unfortunately in. So thank you guys very much for sharing your time and your expertise with us. Another fun way to learn more about the organization, as we mentioned, is to tune into the Kelly Clarkson Show, which airs on WTAE next Wednesday, November 2nd at 3 o'clock. We're going to have the executive director, AJ Jefferson, out there with Kelly, sharing with all of America more about your organization, which we're really looking forward to seeing. So thank you guys very much. And again, you have lots of resources to learn more. And it's been my pleasure to be a part of this and be with you guys today. So have a good afternoon, everybody.